It says, because of Arizona's poor ranking nationwide in education, the Arizona Board of Education adopted more rigorous standards in English and math in 2010, known as Common Core. After the development and adoption of these standards, the federal government got involved by funding schools which implemented Common Core, eliminating the federal government from your answer and focusing on the standards. Will these standards provide the basis for improving education for Arizona students by preparing them for college careers, the military life, or life in general? Please explain your answer. I'll start with Al. Sorry, we have two Al's.
Thank you. Well, when I look at Common Core, I look at it like Obamacare, where Obamacare started off in the dead of the night with strictly Democratic votes at about 2,000 pages in the original bill that no one read. And now we have over 20,000 pages of regulations, and that's only the beginning. I truly believe that that is what's going to happen to Common Core. Nothing good is going to come from this. And in fact, not only do I advocate defunding it and stopping its implementation in our state, but I believe we need to look at turning down all federal funds involving education K through 12 in our state. Each and every penny of it. We need to be totally independent from Washington in this respect. And we can do far better. One thing, when people say that we're the bottom of the barrel, there are many who like to try to say that we have a third world K through 12 education system in Arizona, and it's not true. Thanks to the Republican legislature, we have more school choice now than any state in the nation. We have more charter schools per capita than any state. We have the best home school system. And we're doing that with, out of our total land mass, only 18% is private property. And again, I draw your attention to that little card on your table, where the Dakotas down to Texas and all the states east are 95% private property. That's where money comes from to fund education. I think we're doing a good job, but we'll do even a greater job with maximum parental school choice, no federal standards. We will teach to the SAT level, so our children, those who want to pursue a college education, will get into the best universities in the country, and those that don't will have a great, productive life. Thank you.
Christine.
Thank you. It's really interesting question. We've never heard it framed that way, so whoever was clever, thank you for asking it. When he retired from the military, my husband became a high school teacher, so we actually have a really great view into what's going on in the classroom at a grassroots level every single day. So this is not theoretical for me. This is actual real experience, and let me tell you what's going on. Common Core purported to establish a set of standards that can be compared across the states. That is a fine and noble exercise. We should have standards in this state, developed in this state, applied at the local level. That's all good. What's not good is giving over standard making to bodies outside of Arizona who have never stepped foot in an Arizona classroom. Because what happens is teachers have handcuffs on, and they have to spend such a disproportionately large amount of the time in their class focused on complying with the Common Core standards today that they don't have a chance to actually educate. Wouldn't it be nice if we could have kids graduating from school in Arizona out of the 12th grade who actually knew something? Yeah. So, and those of you who graduated before 1972 had the great good fortune of avoiding the madness of the Department of Education. This is a state issue, and by the way, having read the Constitution, I understand that the 10th Amendment doesn't give over this right to the federal government, but it is something that we can and should solve here. We have some of the finest models of education of any state in the nation right here in Arizona. Let's fund those and repeat those and establish standards that create an academically rigorous environment and not overcome to standards that prevent teachers from teaching kids.
I believe that education, excellent education, is the right. Every child in our state deserves an excellent education. Every child. And I fully support the efforts of the state of Arizona over the last 4 years to implement high standards through, whether you call it Arizona College and Career Ready or Common Core or Bill, Fred, George, whatever it is. I believe that one must establish high standards. One must raise the bar. Well, why do I believe that? Well, as I mentioned in my opening, I come from an educational family. 35 years, my father was superintendent. We lived, we breathed, we drank education. My father taught me that excellence was the only standard in education. I also spent 8 years teaching at the university level. So I've been in the classroom. I know what it's like to educate. As a mayor, I've seen the impact that education has on economic opportunity, and there is no separation between those two. You know, our state does rank in the bottom third. We spend, of educational attainment. We spend $80 to $100 million a year in remedial education for kids who have not learned and have not risen the level. We have a very average overall system. Yes, we have pockets of excellence. We also have pockets of despair, but overall we're an average system. I learned in business that average doesn't hack it. If we send our children out into a world which is ever increasingly competitive, we must prepare them with an excellent education. We are doing them a disservice if we send them out with an average education. I learned long ago in a long business career that the way that you achieve excellence is to set high standards, raise the bar. Right. Then you must measure it. Right. You must measure it. I support our efforts. Can it be tweaked? Sure. But I will not apologize for supporting high standards, high expectations, and for raising the bar and giving, most of all, local control to make that happen.
Alice, would you please address?
By the looks of you, I would say that all of you have received excellent elementary and high school educations because look where you are. I bet there was not one computer in any of those classrooms when you went through it. I bet you had memorization, you had reading, you had teachers that said, you know, do the work, repeat, repeat, repeat until you get it. It can be simplified. The Common Core are concepts which you reach by education, through teaching. They're not what you teach. It's the light that comes on when you go, oh, that's what you mean. That you can take what you learn and go out and choose, make a healthy choice at the store, or a healthy choice for a job, or know that this is just an experience and you can go through it and still have choices afterward. So the Common Core is a standard. It's not what you teach. You teach education. And one thing that I want to make everyone aware of, when we receive federal dollars, the legislature is the one that is responsible for disbursement. It doesn't go right to education. So we got to make sure when we're told, well, all of these federal problems and all this Medicare, well, it's all coming to the state. They're just redispersing it. So our education dollar, our Medicaid dollar, these standards, we are just the view. Education is the mountain. So if we climb the mountain, we'll reach those concepts. And so I would say if we have teachers trying to teach tests, then we haven't educated our teachers. I think we should have the best teachers for the youngest students. Students learn how to learn, and it gets easier as you go. Thank you very much.
Consistent with my propensity for visual aids, Chad Roach, would you come help me for a second? I'm going to ask your clerk of your Superior Court here to grab the other end of that. We're going to unfold it, and then unfold it the other way. You know what that is?
They're not Kleenex boxes.
They're not Kleenex boxes. That's Common Core for reading and writing. In fact, that's just half of it. Turn it over the other way. There's the other half of it. But you know what happens on page 21 right here? Where this blue thing said? You know what it says in Common Core for fourth graders for reading in Arizona? It says that they should read at a fourth grade level. Now what a stunning realization. Because for the last 20 years, we've been using Arizona academic standards that already said that fourth graders should read at a fourth grade level. And I can go to other pages in Common Core. Thanks, Jeff. You make a great pen of white, by the way. I go to another page and find something that our old academic standards said that we used to teach in 3rd grade, Common Core moves it to 2nd grade. I can go to other pages and find something that we taught in 3rd grade, Common Core moves it to 4th grade. So there's some timing differences. But what we need to stay focused on is what are we going to do different in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade classes in Arizona to make sure that 78 or 88 or 98% of Arizona 4th graders can read at a 4th grade level. Because you know what quality counts reports that our percentage is right now? 28% of 4th graders read at a 4th grade level. And unfortunately, we're not too far behind the national average, which is 34%. When only a fourth or a third of your 4th graders, and it doesn't get any better by 8th grade, are reading at grade level. The standards in Common Core are probably okay. I don't like the fact that they were set by people outside of Arizona, and they're tying the federal dollars, but you didn't want to go there, and so I'll stop before Tim yells at me here in a minute.
Arizona education is underperforming, and we need to do something about it. We have kids that have spent 13 years, K through 12, in school, and they graduate with a piece of paper that says they have some type of an achievement, and they can't count change in an ice cream store. And I've seen it myself. We need to do something about it, and Common Core is not the answer. Anything that is tied to Washington, D.C. for funding will not fix what's wrong in Arizona. We know how to educate a child in Arizona. We have some of the finest public schools in the nation. Why aren't we reapplying what they're doing in those schools to other schools? Why aren't we funding what works and stop funding what doesn't work, like we do in every other sector of our society? We need high expectations for these kids, and we need good teachers who get good pay. We've got to untie the hands of principals, and we've got to measure. Kids have got to know their multiplication facts by the end of the 3rd grade. They've got to know how to read before they get to 4th grade. I've got 3 boys of my own, so I know how important this is. But all the talk about standards and talking about math and science and English, which are all important, you don't hear any talk about what I think is the most important thing, and that's civics. That's about what makes America special. If I'm elected your governor, we'll have a civics test that these kids take. This is the test you take when you become an American. Okay, take a look at it online. You can just Google the test when you become an American. Only 4% of Arizona kids can pass it. We'll fix that if I'm governor. Thank you.
I will use my executive authority as governor, just to be clear with you, to repeal Arizona's participation in the Common Core standards and testing regime on day one. And with all due respect to the questioner, you can't take the federal government out of the equation. It would be one thing if national standards were in fact voluntary, but they're mandatory here in Arizona. Why? Because we took a pittance, a small amount of federal education funding, and we sought a waiver under federal education regulations. As a consequence, we have mandatory, one-size-fits-all, top-down standards imposed on all Arizona public schools, district and charter. The Arizona Association of Business Officials says our participation in Common Core will cost $387 million to implement, at a time when we face very real fiscal challenges as a state. I spent the last 16 years, I had the privilege of chairing the House Education Subcommittee, and I spent the last 16 years working on education reform and improvement. And if that experience has taught me anything, it's that we have to protect local control and decision-making as close to the school and classroom level as possible with respect to decisions regarding curriculum, standards, assessments, personnel, budget, and we have to protect and maximize parental school choice, which is a precious right to so many Arizona parents. And running for governor, I'm not going to mislead you. I'm going to, if you'll pardon the pun, be frank. No. This is the Arizona Republic on April 2nd under the headline, "Is Scott Smith the only gubernatorial candidate to support Common Core?" Now, you just heard what Kim and Doug said. But it goes on to say GOP hopefuls Kim Bennett and Doug Ducey are both critical of Common Core, but have not said whether they would replace it. I'll convene a statewide education accountability summit to hear from parents, educators, business and civic leaders on how we can build upon and improve our current standards so that all kids, when they advance to high school, are ready to learn at the secondary level And so that all kids, when they graduate high school, can get into our world-class colleges and universities. I'll make sure those standards correlate with the admission standards and requirements of our world-class universities, but I will get Arizona out of Common Core on day one.